whimsical. Yeah, I think it's an inherited trait. The art has allowed my personality to find a place to escape. I have been compelled, I think, to do art since I was little. Yeah, there is something inside, and it can go along and go along, and then all of a sudden I have to go out and create something. And the beginning of needle felting was, I think, in about the 70s, and it was Ayala Tape, who was visiting friends on the East Coast, and they had a needle punch. When you make commercial wool or commercial felt, you have needles on the top and needles on the bottom and wool in the middle, and they go like this, and they agitate the wool and they turn it into felt. So these people she was visiting had a little one of those kinds of machines because they wanted to have create bat or felt for inside quilts. And so she took one of those felting needles and took some wool and said, "Oh, I think I'll just play with this." And she played with it. And that was the beginning of needle felting. And I always have trouble believing that that was the beginning, because didn't somebody think about this before then? But everybody supports the story. So apparently Ayala Tape, and she's the one who came and taught. She's the one instructor that I've taken a class from on needle felting. This was my first felting project, and I was so amazed that I could make it, and I carried it in my pocket, and I went to the art center where I lived, and I was carrying it around and just showing it to people, because I was just like, look what you can do. It was just, maybe some people are it's in the blood, it's something, it's, my mother was a teacher, my sister was a teacher, I was never going to be a teacher. Teachers don't really do things, they just teach about them, and I wanted to go out in the world and do the things. And I finally realized that everything I was doing, I was a docent at the National Zoo, I was working with a science center, teaching about animals and bringing out owls and live ones and whatever, and showing them to people and having a wonderful time doing all of that. One day I was driving down the street and I said, "Damn, I'm a teacher." Yeah, but teaching was good for me. I got a lot of recognition. I got a lot of, it was the niche for me, and middle school was my niche. Who knew? I would never have said I was going to do middle school. How do I contrast teaching senior adults with middle school? I don't even know if I can answer this question. It's certainly easier because I don't have to worry about a lot of things, and they're going to follow directions, hopefully, but not always. Senior adults, sometimes there's, I want to say more gentleness or something about the differences we all have, because we're all aging in a different way, and our skills we start to lose. So we have arthritis in our fingers, or we have these kinds of things, and so there are those kinds of things to be aware of and be gentle and encouraging about. But they both, middle school kids need a lot of encouraging, and I don't know. I have to think about that more. Felting is done with wool. It's a matter of tangling wool fibers so that they adhere to each other, and every little fiber of wool has got little barbs on it, and those little barbs lock together and they form a fabric like wool. And it's done with a really long, very sharp needle. It has barbs on the end, and when you move it in and out of the wool, it tangles those fibers and turns them into that harder surface that's wool. And I call it wool sculpture rather than needle felting, because it really is sculpting with wool. The freedom you have to create with it is pretty amazing. If you're making a face, you can add wrinkles, and you can add eyebrows, and you can add all kinds of things. Or with incredibly forgiving, if you make a mistake or you do anything, you just rip it out and start over again. I've torn the heads off of things. I have removed arms and legs and done other awful things to some of the things I'm working on. And it's fun, and it's exciting. It's fun to see what people are going to come up with. It is an amazing thing to me to teach this class and to have people make the things that they make. If I'm working with older adults who have eyesight problems or problems with arthritis and that kind of thing, I think it's a matter of encouragement and letting people decide. Some people are going to decide it really isn't for them, and they have to say, that's okay. Yeah, we'll miss you, but it's okay. Because I'm sure there's going to be a day when I'm going to say, oh, unhappily, I can't do that anymore. But there's also an encouraging to go one step more and try and find the way that will work for you. And that's pretty exciting too, to watch people. And so far, I haven't had anybody not stay in the class. The whole felting needle thing is relatively, except for your hand having to go like this, it's not the fact that you get poked. So we keep lots of Band-Aids on hand. Anybody else a Band-Aid? Not yet. You are laying out the wool and then rubbing it and rubbing it to tangle the fibers. Great. Super. I usually have a vision of what I am going to make. I can be taking a walk, doing something, and this vision will come to me. At one time, the vision was of a vulture in red rubber waders. And so I indeed made a vulture in red rubber waders. As I'm making them, I start talking to them, and they become kind of real. And then there are times when they choose to go a direction that's their own. Sometimes when I'm making things, I can't relate to them. Okay, if I'm making a rabbit, if you've ever seen a rabbit without its ears, it does not look like a rabbit. And so in order to make the rabbits, I just stick some temporary ears on them so that I can relate to them while I'm making them. When I make polar bears, I have to stick a nose on the end or I can't relate to them for a while. I'll have to admit that yes, I do talk out loud to them. They kind of become real. And I expect maybe there's a piece or some aspect of me probably in each one. So maybe it's kind of like talking to yourself. Yes, they have a personality, very definitely. They absolutely have personalities, and if you look at them, every face, there's something about it. Okay, in some of this, there's something about talking for the animals, about making people aware of their presence, or doing something, speaking for them. Going to start this with that it's very important to me that I hold true to some of those aspects of the creature, the animal's body structure right. A rabbit's foot, there's a bit stylized, but there's a certain structure for that, and so yeah, I go down to the skeleton. I go use the skeleton on the rabbit, and I think I've used it on some other things. looking very carefully, very carefully. It's really nice that you can Google things now, because I just Google image of bear's paw, and I can get lots of bear paws, or image of the nose of a particular animal, or eyes. Probably the most important feature on all the things I make are the eyes. And it's fun because I don't use fake eyes. I make my eyes, and people will come up and look and say, yeah, 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 wool, but the eyes, how did you? No, they're wool too. Really? And it's really fun because it's the eyes that seem to carry most of these pieces. That's the important piece. For me, when I'm creating something, I need the others out of my head. I need the people and the judges not to be there. And when I carry them into the studio with me, it's most uncomfortable. I'm not free to create, and it's not a good thing to carry those judges and whatever. Sometimes people want a commissioned piece, and I will very seldom do it, because then I've got them in my head about what they want and how they want it to look, and I'm not sure I can promise that. But back to the question about whether my art has changed me. It certainly opened up a whole new world for me, a new world of new people and other people in my life that I wouldn't have had without it. More involved in supporting art for lots of people. But I think the most fun thing for people to know is all those wool sculptures start with nothing but wool. And so you can see where the creativity comes in. You have to take this and decide what you're going to make out of it.